Hello. Oh, there you go. Can you see me? Oh, we're good.
I
Right.
see you. Look at you, man. That hair looks Conan O'Brien good. Well done.
Oh, thank you. I like to think of it as the James Gunn haircut. Oh, it's great to see you, Kev.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. So firstly, I just want to start this off and just say congratulations on the 430 movie. I know you've heard that a lot today, I'm sure, but it's a fantastic film.
I
Really, really.
look, let me tell you something. When you live like Kevin Smith, you are fucking more than happy for people to be like, I like a thing. Like as many times, I'm like, go ahead, keep saying it because that will sustain me in the next one when people are like, what happened? What you were on a roll, a one film roll. What happened?
No, I get it. I get it. I'm always happy to receive compliments as well, so I appreciate the hair thing. But um, no, so before I start properly, before I put my journalist hat on, I've got a little fanboy thing to say. I think I have told you this before, but for the sake of the interview, I'll say it again. Got a little story relating to the 430 movie. So I got to be a tiny, tiny part of this, tiny, tiny part of this project. So I was an extra in the film, and for me,
Where?
I was so just as they're coming, the climactic sequence, they're coming into the film to watch it, just where Rosario Dawson pops up
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on the left hand side of the screen. I'm in a yellow t-shirt talking to a girl on the left hand side. Yeah.
What were you doing? So were you in the area? What was
Yeah.
going? How did that happen?
So I don't know if you remember. I've told you before. Again, like I know you meet a lot of people and stuff, but so I'm a flight attendant as well as a bit of a film journalist.
That's right. You're the guy. That's right. We had a whole fucking discussion about you being a flight attendant and shit. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, that's a great life hack. Oh my God. What a small world.
Yeah. So literally, so I was like, oh, he's gonna be like this guy. I'm gonna have to get a restraining order soon.
Oh
Keep up
no, fuck
with
no, man. That's what well shit. I'm gonna turn the tables. What is it like to be in a Kevin Smith movie? What was it like on set?
Well, okay, see, this is you kind of led me interestingly into what I was going to say to you anyway, Kev. So, so basically, so no, basically, I just happened to be in the sort of manipulated my flight so that I could go to the Fat Man Beyond show to see you and Mark Bernardin.
Right.
And
And we shot we at that show we were soliciting crowd.
yes, exactly. And the lovely Jess Dubois cornered me and was like, "Do you want to be in a movie?" And I was like, "Well, I think I've been waiting my whole life to be asked that question."
Yeah. That's what happens when you go to Smodcast. And people just come
Literally,
up and go, you want to be in a movie?
magic happens there. So, so I so long as well, in a nutshell. So when I was a kid, I bonded with my dad over films, like at the cinema, like I know that you did with your dad. Then
Yeah.
that eventually led me to study film at university. And when I was at university, my lectures were all held inside a cinema because they had a deal with this local cinema. It was really cool, really, really cool. So then, after all of that, to then see myself on the big screen in a cinema while I was in the cinema, it was incredibly full circle moment, incredible, it's like a dream come true. And I just want to say thank you for that. So,
Isn't it number one? You're welcome, but isn't it fucking like I live up a meta asshole every day of my life, right? Like because I see images that look like me, but I'm wearing a long coat, and I live in a world where like I hang out with that guy that I actually hang out with in movies, like and like my kid played his kid in a movie. It's just everything about life is kind of meta at this point, and that definitely has infected the movies from time to time. Like when you get into Reboot and Clerks 3, it's like, oh my god, like it's beyond meta. These characters from Clerks are now making Clerks, so it's nice to be able to hand it off to somebody else and be like, isn't it weird, like fucking seeing yourself in a
it's
flick and then oddly natural at the same time, where you're like, I should do more of that.
I did think I was, oh, I look quite good on screen actually.
Yeah, exactly, man. You're like, look at
All
that
the
shit. I
hairs
pulled it off.
no, it was very much a meta passing of the I don't know torch or whatever you want to call it. It was beautiful though. So I just want to say thank you for that before I try and go
That's
a bit into
fucking wild.
professional mode. So thank you, Kev. But
More than happy to provide.
thank you. So obviously you famously shot this film in your own childhood theatre,
Yeah.
which is crazy with the former Atlantic Cinemas, which is now Smodcastle, which you reopened in 2022. So how much of an emotional experience was this shoot, and and like how's it been to see how warmly it's been responded to by fans and critics as well?
I honestly, I'll start with the latter first. Like, I was shocked that people liked the movie because you got to remember, I made this flick when I got out of the nut house, so I was as fragile as I could be at that time, and I feel like the movie is as fragile as it could be because of that. Like I hadn't been smoking weeds, and this is the first movie I directed where I hadn't smoked weed in like 10 years. So I was like crisp and fucking present with myself and the movie for every frame. I had friends going like, friends who'd worked with me before, and then friends who'd never worked with me before, who had like this kind of outside experience going like, it's crazy. I never thought you'd be so concentrated. And I guess I was, because I, as I was making the flick, and I guess because I wasn't smoking weed, I suddenly realized, oh my God, what I do for a living is I try to manufacture artificially these amazing life-changing moments that have occurred to me and that have impacted head and heart, that meant so much to me that I had to recreate them to present them to total strangers and be like, isn't that fucking great? Like, let me share this thing with you and stuff. And because of that, it's like I employ artifice um, in the efforts of saying something genuine. Just occurred to me 30 years into the career while I was shooting this movie, because I was so fucking dialed in. So going into it, I wasn't sure what we had, you know, and then we finished the movie and I, you know, cut it together real quick. I was cutting while we were shooting and stuff. So I was able to submit, you know, we shot in August, September. I was able to submit a cut to Sundance for possible inclusion last year in November, or before November, in time for them to make the decision in November. And I felt like, you know, shit, man, the movie's got no edge to it whatsoever, but it is a movie about loving movies. And that is a movie festival. And, you know, I did make Clerks. And then 30 years ago, the anniversary is coming up this year in January, meaning last January. So I felt like, I think we'll get in. And then Sundance was like, no, thank you. And this is not me shitting on Sundance. Like, you know, they don't have to let me in and stuff. But that hit me in such a way where I was already like feeling fragile. And I was like, fucking knew it. I knew this movie was soft. I should have had everyone curse. What the fuck was I doing, man? Like following my heart. It's so fucking stupid. And then I started distancing myself from the movie. Not like publicly going like Kevin Smithy, but like honestly going like busying myself with other shit first and foremost and whatnot. We were going to tour the movie. Then I was like, you know what? I don't think it's going to do anything. I think it'd be really hard for me to educate people. It's not a Jay and Bob movie, a Clerks movie, so let's not tour it. And it wasn't until people started seeing it that like I realized, oh, it is what you hoped it was. Like honestly, I was convinced the movie sucked. And then because people were like, no, it's good because it don't have an edge. It's good because you're not fucking trying. It's great because you're not like tying it into 16 other fucking movies. It's because it all plays from the heart. He's like, this fucking movie is like a beating open fucking heart and stuff worn on your goddamn sleeve. So all the things that I was disabused of the notion that the movie didn't work because it had no edge, because all anyone talks about is how warm and inviting the movie is. And there is no edge to it. There's nothing original in this movie. This movie plays like Kevin Smith doing John Hughes. But there are plenty of filmmakers that do homage movies all the time and stuff. So, you know, I don't have to make excuses for that. As long as if you're homaging it, you do the job correctly. And I feel like as a student of those films, as a guy who felt seen by John Hughes in the 80s, you know, who'd seen many teen movies, of course, but always felt like, I don't fucking recognize any of these people till John Hughes started making movies. Then you're like, this guy fucking speaks our language. I felt like all I had to do was give the Hughesiest movie I could, man. And it kind of works in the flick's favor. So I was delighted to see people accept it and say nice things about it or what it makes them feel like. Like I get it because I've heard enough of them speak and I'm like, oh, I get it. We're all fucking movie lovers. And we've all shared these experiences of like, that's my church. That's where I go to get away from everything. That's where I go with my friends. I socialize, but it's town hall. It's the center of my universe. It doesn't really happen so much anymore. You know, it's like everyone's phone is generally the center of their universe. But this, not only does it work as a snapshot for those of us who live through that kind of stuff and whatnot, but it's also an idealistic snapshot for those who'd like the world to be like that now, in terms of like, man, I wish people hung out at the movies more. I wish movies were more important than they've become in the face of streaming and stuff like that. Not in that like everything sucks, middle-aged white guy kind of way where you're mad and shit like that. It's for the cineasts, you know, who they kind of get the movie. And I mean, maybe not true cineasts who are like, you know, fucking Louis Boonwell and shit. Maybe they might not go for the 4:30 movie, but people who have loved movies seem to embrace the flick. And I forgot about that because of the Sundance, like because of my reaction to Sundance. Sundance didn't do anything other than be like, it's not for us. But my reaction post Sundance was like, I fucked up. Like, why isn't it for them? Because it's terrible, because it's got no edge. Nobody says motherfucker. Why did you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until the movie came out and people started writing about it, like not just the critics, but also just people like, oh, I saw it and it's this. And overwhelmingly, they talk about what it makes them feel like. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what I was doing. I forgot. I was on the set trying to capture a fucking feeling. And I'm just delighted that it worked out. I was delighted to be able to reconnect with the movie because I absolutely fucking love it. You know, this is going to sound gross. I wake up early. Sometimes I just put the movie on because it's like a warm blanket in the mornings, man. Like, you really want these kids to like make it work and shit. It's very sweet that way. So it's been a journey with this flick, man. Here's the long and short of it though. I had to fucking come out of a nut house in order to make the most emotional fucking connective movie I've made in fucking years. I don't know where I got to go next to make the next fucking flick. So I'm just going to make Moose Jaws. That'll be easier.
we all want to see Moose Jaws. Like that was
going to be what's that going to cost me, for heaven's sakes?
You know what? You need to make Tusks first. Tusks before
True.
Moose Jaws.
Oh, let me tell you. Let me say it this way, because me and Justin Long have been talking lately. What if those two things were the same thing? I'm just saying. Just planting that here for the first time anywhere.
Okay, interesting. No, that's like I'm gonna take that as an exclusive.
That is. We ain't talking about it no place else.
Okay, interesting. It's so funny. I've dovetailed off from what I was originally going to say. You got me distracted with that amazing.
Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
No. I apologize. I just got so excited by the Moose Jaws thing. So there's a line in the 4:30 movie which I love, and it resonates with me so much. I think maybe even more than any line has ever in a film, which is really so it's the movies make life make sense thing. Like I told you about, you know, my dad, me as a kid and stuff. I love that line. So, and I'm sure
you've been honest with you. I thank you so much. Like, the older I get, the more I realize, like, stop trying so hard. And that line to me doesn't try very hard. It just speaks a very plain truth. And it's a sentiment that like anyone who loves movies can identify with. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I was surprised and delighted by how many people really responded to that. They put it in the trailer. So there is one cat on Twitter who put up a picture. He got it tattooed on his body before he even saw the movie. And I was like, man, I hope this fucking flick is good. Like, Sundance didn't like it, so I didn't want to tell that cat this. But heavens, man, like I love that people love that line. And if you would have asked me intellectually for a list of like the 10 best lines I ever wrote in a movie, that probably wouldn't even approach the top 50 for me. But emotionally, fuck, that line hits hard. I've seen it hit hard, and I'm so glad that I'm responsible for it. But it just goes to show you it's never what you think.
No. Well,
like I never thought that line would impact like it does. And then I'm like, now in retrospect, I'm like, how could you not have seen that coming? Because anybody, like, you said it for a fucking reason, like, because that's what you feel in your heart. And guess what? You know for a fact over the course of 30 years now that a lot of things that you feel in your heart are felt by other people out there too. So I should have seen it coming. I should have known that, like, such a simple, sweet notion as movies like make life make sense would hit fucking like a tsunami to the right head and heart. And I'm not saying there's a wrong head and heart, but some people don't give a fuck about movies. That's not their speed. But for anybody who views life through the lens, for anybody who sees a movie theater as a church, as a cathedral, I didn't see it coming, but man, I'm so delighted it did. It just, but once again, you can't plan for shit. Like, there are lines in that movie where I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna hit him hard." Didn't, but that one does, and I'm like, "Great, I'm glad you got one. Thank you."
Well, it's like famously, obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger never the whole "I'll be back" in Terminator. Yeah. He was like, I never thought that was going to be an iconic line.
True.
So So you mentioned about your sort of mental health struggles, which you talked about, a lot in interviews and stuff in the past. So
Mm.
your, I mean, in a lot of ways, your authenticity and your warmth is your self-expression as a filmmaker and a man, right? And like your most recent sort of few years of films, like post Heart Attack, have all had like a sort of very deep personal message to them. So we had Jay and Silent Bob reboot. You had the themes of sort of fatherhood. Clerks 3, you had sort of death, and now 4:30 movie we have like adolescence and first love and that sort of thing. Can you give me
Mm.
any sort of hint about the themes that the upcoming Jay and Silent Bob Star Wars might explore? And adding on to what you said earlier, post Kevin Smith giving up weed, these are the famous sort of stoner movies. Has it influenced the sort of creative process in a different way now that you're sort of not a stoner for it? Do you know what I'm saying?
I
That was a lot.
feel I feel like well, the older I get with the Jay and Silent Bob movies, I know some people don't like this, but they gotta mean something. You know what I'm saying? Like otherwise, like why do it? You have to bring something new to the table. And so for me, I maybe for others, they're like the same old shit. But like even with reboot, like the main joke of reboot was like, we're gonna make the same fucking movie again, same plot. They're gonna go to Hollywood and try to stop another movie from happening. So that's like the joke. But underneath that movie is all about like being what is being a dad mean, nature versus nurture, things like that. I think if I had to pick a theme, and I know it because it while I was writing, I wouldn't say I hit it with a big gong, but it definitely pops up in the work, and I think will probably always pop up in the work from now until the time I die. Is the question of going from irreverent to irrelevant, which is something that happens with age. I started this business 30 years ago, and they were like, "Oh, he's the king of Gen X cinema," and that don't even exist anymore. So my empire, if it ever existed, is long fucking dead. So I don't know what I represent like
I wouldn't
anymore.
agree, by the way. I would disagree. I think you've had a renaissance, but I'm sorry. I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I it's I mean, I hate to steal from LL Cool J and be like, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, but like, I learned a long time ago to just like quietly chug along in your own lane. When I was a kid, I used to get like jealous and reactionary. Like I remember like Ed Burns had the Brothers McMullen went to Sundance the year after Clerks, man, and like sold for like a couple $1,000,000 and made 10 million. No, it didn't sell for a couple million, maybe 1 million or something, but it made 10 million at the box office and shit. And the Brothers McMullen became like the indie success story that Clerks had been the year before. And I remember being threatened by that. Like, what? Fucking, what do you mean there's a new young fucking filmmaker and shit? Like, they crowned me. That guy don't exist anymore. Now I'm like, you're never entitled to any intention whatsoever. It was lucky that anybody even saw your first fucking movie, let alone you got to make 15 more after that. So now it goes from a place of like, oh, of course I make films. That's what I do for a living. To like each one is a celebration because it's tougher and tougher to get them made. As I age up and my audience ages out, people are like, well, step aside, old man. What does that youngster behind you have to say? And I'm just amazed that I still kind of get to even practice my art form as regularly as I do, but that has everything to do with the audience, with my audience. And I don't mean that in terms of like, I'm going to be fucking possessive and gross. But anytime I go into a place where they green light something I want to do or give me money, they always talk about the audience, my audience. They're always like, well, he's got that audience. That's the only reason anyone gives me money anymore is because of y'all, not because of me. They're like, he's going to make another Clerks, watch, but they're like, his audience will show up. So that has allowed me to like explore areas and maybe not be so career oriented. I'm supposed to be as a filmmaker looking toward excelling in my field and winning an Oscar one day, but that's like never been part of it for me. For me, I'm just like slobberingly grateful I've gotten to make one fucking movie that connected, let alone make more. And some work and for people and some didn't and stuff like that. But by the time you get to this one, I would love to say like, this came from A lifetime. It did, absolutely. You don't make the 4:30 movie unless you've had a lifetime of loving movies. But it wasn't like I've been nurturing this for years. Although I have, because I love my own fucking story. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan and stuff. Every part of it, even before Clerks and shit like that. This movie comes out of like, we bought a movie theater and it's old. So let's shoot a movie in it that's set in the olden days. This will be the closest I'll ever get to like Merchant Ivory, this weird little period piece of a movie where it's like, all right, it's gonna be set in the 80s, back when I used to go to the movies a lot when I was in high school with my friends and stuff. But what is the story gonna be? And I picked like, oh, this is the story of my first date with my high school girlfriend. Something that, like, probably would resonate with people that don't necessarily know me or my work or anything like that. And putting it out there turned out to be the smartest thing I did. Even the last two movies, which I fucking loved. I loved rebooting Clerks 3 and whatnot. Clerks 3, honestly, I look at that movie, I'm like, I don't think I'd get better than that. But then this movie comes out and people kind of see it not with their eyes, but with their heart, I guess. It sounds corny as fuck, but like they recognize themselves in the movie. The same way I recognize myself in John Hughes movies and stuff like that. And in that way, I feel like, oh, well, then I guess we did it. Like, it's tough to measure success anymore. Box office don't really exist, and is not really part of the equation in movies of this size and whatnot. So that metric is gone. Critically speaking, it's like, I'm generally used to people being like, he just makes his shit. So I can't really count on it, but it was nice to see like critics go for the ride on this one and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, longevity, is fucking terrifying to any artist because, you spend your time making, handcrafting something with a bunch of people, the self-expression that is everything. It takes years sometimes. And then you put it out there and people go like, what's next? And you're like, fuck, let me figure that out. But this one didn't even come from a place of like, let me take a wistful journey, down memory lane. Because I'll be honest with you, that never stopped. I've been taking wistful journeys down memory lane since fucking Clerks. Clerks was a wistful journey about me remembering working at Quick Stop while I was still working at Quick Stop. So this one feels like the same, and it feels like I just leaned more into the heart, which is about the only thing I could do at the time. And then it worked for people. And now, honestly, the real sad thing for me is like, boy, they like this one. I bet you they're gonna hate the next one. It's just like I got to do it all again. Like honestly, every time I finish a film, I'm like, maybe I'll get lucky, drop dead. This will be the last one I make, and then we'll go out on a high note and shit like that. But the longer I stick around and make movies, the chances are some of them, won't be as good as others. But right now, this one's good. Look, in the Nut House, the most important thing they taught me was this. I'll share this because it's free advice and it's fucking, honestly, it should be obvious, but when you're in the Nut House, they teach you a lot of obvious shit that you could put on a pillow or a fucking t-shirt and whatnot. Very simple. Past filled with depression. Stay out of that because that's where most human beings live. They don't live in the present. They live in the past, dwelling on past mistakes, going over old arguments, thinking about the things you did wrong and shit like that, lamenting the things you did right but don't do anymore correctly anymore. And then the future is fraught with fucking peril because it's all about fucking anxiety because nobody knows the future and shit. Although every one of us is a creative genius when it comes to like writing our own demise or how shit's going to go bad in the future and shit. Watch how creative people can get when they're predicting their own fucking doom and stuff. So if the past is depression, the future is anxiety, the only place that makes sense to be at all times, which is where we are right here and now, is in the present. Be mindful. Like this is it. This is the only thing you have a possible chance at fucking controlling and whatnot. And so rather than dwell on like, hey man, what's going to happen to the next movie? Just fucking elated that anyone grooved on 4:30 movie. Like I figured some older people who came up with me or as old as me would recognize it as like, oh, that's John Hughes. But I'm just delighted when young people fucking go like, look, I wasn't born. Like, I've heard from people who review the movie who I'm like, wait, when were you born? And they're like 93. And I'm like, you were cum when this movie happened and shit back in the day.
I was 91, so I was.
Yes, exactly. So you don't even exist when the 4:30 movie happens and shit. But yet, it doesn't matter what era. Just like when I watched, American Graffiti. I didn't live like that. I never grew up in the 50s and shit. But I recognized a world that was similar to mine. Same with Dazed and Confused. I didn't grow up in Texas and stuff like that. I didn't grow up where football was the thing. But there are parts of that coming of age movie that I'm like, oh, I identify with. You know, I guess at the end of the day, that's what I did. I made a coming of age movie where it's age appropriate. Generally speaking, all my characters are coming of age, but they're in their fucking 20s, 30s. In the case of Clerks 3, in their 50s. This is the first time I've made a coming of age movie since Mallrats, where the characters are like age appropriate to be like, well, smart that they're going through this shit now.
No, it was really really fantastic. I love the film, and you know another strange thing. Obviously, like I've been told we've got to wrap up a few times, so I didn't want to cut you off, but I because I'm loving this so much. But I'm talking about me being an extra and stuff in the film. It's funny because in 1986, when the year the film is set, is the year that my wife was born. So I thought that was kind of another weird. Yeah, isn't that strange, right? But
That's wild. Look at you, man. So, yeah, in a weird way, you were like, hey, man, I'm such a fan of you. I was in a movie about when you were born.
look at me in the year you were born. I was there.
Yeah, I was there. It's creepy, but it's true.
So no, I this has been fantastic. Honestly, you're like I'm such a big fan. Congratulations again, and no,
It
this
means the world. And honestly, thank you for showing up, for being a body in the fucking movie, to the point where like you were a necessary body. You saw yourself in the movie. That meant we filled the hole with you. So thank you for doing it and stuff. And like you should expect at this point to have either the career of Jason Mewes or Ben Affleck. That's what happens to every young male that works with me.
Good. I'll replay that in my head forever, Kev. I'll remind you of that.
Stay in the present. Stay in the present. Don't go back in the past.
You're right. Next time I see you, like future Ben Affleck. That's me.
Yes.
No, thank you so much, Kev. Enjoy the rest of your
Such
day.
a pleasure.
Real pleasure.
Excellent talking. Great seeing you again.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.